One of my
ready
favorite
to talk
things
about it.
is when people see my hoodie that says "Jesus loves you, nerd," and they're just like, "Oh, I like that hoodie," but I'm not a nerd, and I was just like, "Want to bet?" Like,
I guarantee you.
give me 5 questions, and I'll find something that you nerd out about.
All right, it is Radio Matt here, the Back Row Morning Show, welcoming Luke Filipiak, the in real life events lead for Love Thy Nerd, and currently heading over a big new project that we're kind of partnering with Lux Digital and Love Thy Nerd. We've seen it teased over the last couple of weeks. We got the website rolled out, social media for this brand new event, the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit, or NCMS. Luke, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Happy to be here.
We would love to know what exactly is NCMS.
Yeah. So NCMS, as you said, stands for Nerd Culture Ministry Summit. And if you've been around Love Thy Nerd for a minute, you will know that for the past, how many years is it? 4 years now? We've done the LTN Con. And so the first year in 2019, that was in person in Texas. And then the following years, 2020 and 21, we moved that to online. And still for the majority of it, we had sessions, we had training in order to teach people how to love and serve their nerdy neighbors better. Last year, we brought it back into an in-person event, and we had that in New Albany, Indiana, southern Indiana. And again, we had sessions training people on how to better love and serve their nerdy neighbors, tell nerds that Jesus loves them, as well as we had breakouts, focusing in on specific things like, the board game side of, like what it takes to like develop a board game, like a Christian board game, or create good Christian content, specifically from like a board game designer's perspective. Or hey, how to host like LAN parties, or like use old school LAN parties, Halo parties to reach people and tell people that Jesus loves them. And on the other side of it, we invited in vendors and publishers and creators to our exhibit hall, and we were kind of really stoked to see like Christians behind these industries creating and doing business, all while keeping the main thing. And then we just had a ton of games and all sorts of stuff, events where you could win games and just laugh and have fun. And so all of that was just kind of like a lot for one event. And for me personally, I felt myself getting distracted a little bit. One, I ran myself way too thin, as if you could relate if you're in ministry, and you'll understand. But two, there was so much going on, which isn't inherently a bad thing. But right away, I told Bubba, our CEO, that I'm like, I have this vision. There was my first mistake, telling Bubba my vision of, I see this event kind of splitting in half, to where one half of it is a conference or a summit of some sorts, where we just really focus in on the training of like church leaders, or just organization leaders, or just people like in their community that want to reach other nerds. And we just really devote the time to like pouring into them and teaching them and training them and giving them the resources that we've collected over the years, and then send them out to be successful in nerd culture ministry. And then on the other side of it, like, we can equip and empower them, and then provide like LTN Con again the following year, of like, hey, this is one where we're just gonna have games, and we're gonna have events, and we're gonna have a ton of fun, but it's like all with a purpose. And so that's where NCMS kind of came from. We're doubling down on the training and the resources this year, bringing in speakers and having keynotes and breakouts and tracks specifically for different avenues of this ministry. And so
So we're splitting up essentially what used to be the LTN conference. That's what con
Yes.
really stood for.
Correct.
Most people assumed convention, but we're
Mm-hmm.
we're splitting up the LTN conference into an LTN
Mm-hmm.
convention, which will be separate, and the NCMS summit that we're partnering with other ministries
Yes.
for.
Yeah, part of it was just kind of defining our terms of just like, yeah, a lot of people see LTN Con and think like, oh yeah, it's a convention. I'm gonna
Right.
go like have fun, play games, and then they're like, wait, what is all this training? I didn't know about this. Like, well, you didn't read our pamphlet.
And I think you're right that it was a great event. I loved LTN Con this past year. But there was a lot crammed in those 2 hours, to the point where a lot of people had to miss out on some of the things.
Yes.
Which is kind of a
Yeah, so that actually, I'm glad you said that, because at NCMS we have these breakouts, right? And so we have tracks. So you can sign up for the digital ministry tracks. You could sign up for local ministry, and then we're doing like a youth ministry track, or we're calling it Next Gen, on how you can use, nerd culture ministry in youth groups, in children's ministry, and all of that. But we're offering them twice. So you're still going to miss out on one, but you can still sign up for 2 tracks. And so,
and even
that
with
looks like,
that, the one of the main difference in at least like focus that I can see with these kind of events is that one of the big differences between like the LTN Con and this is that we're going to be inviting like churches and ministries.
Yes.
And so when that's the kind of focus that we have, usually a church will send more than just a single person. Right. They'll usually send at least a couple people. And so like when my church used to go to like the Celebrate Recovery convention when we ran a CR here, and we would always send at least 4 people, sometimes as much as 10 or 12. That way we could all split up and go to all the different things and get everything covered, one or the other. I really think that's just it's a really smart way to do this. I hadn't really thought
we're excited about it.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it until you put it in that perspective, that it's kind of splitting up what LTN Con was into 2 different things, but it's smart. So why is this necessary? Like what do we hope to accomplish with NCMS?
So we find it necessary. We've been doing this as LTN, been doing it for 5 years. All of our founders were a part of another ministry before this, and they were doing it for 5+ years over there. And so we've been plugged into nerd culture ministry for a very long time, and we find the need there because we see burn bridges between church and nerd culture, and we want to help mend those bridges, build new bridges, connecting pastors and ministry leaders and organization leaders to people that are very much in their congregation or in their community that they might not see like a relationship between them. And so we want to help build those bridge those gaps and empower them to put on a game night like in their church or in their community, or we want them to learn about these people that might be streaming. They might want to be wanting to share their faith on Twitch or on the internet or through YouTube videos or content. But these leaders have no idea. And we want to empower those people in the church that are nerds that relate to and call themselves nerds. We want to be able to get them the support that they need. Something Bubba always says is we want to encourage, equip, and empower. And so we want to encourage nerds. Like, if you're a nerd, come to NCMS. We want to encourage you. We want you to be surrounded by your people. And we want to pour into you and just show you that Jesus loves you. We want to equip. We want to equip people that are in nerd culture ministry already. We want to equip them with the tools and the resources and the support that they need. And so that if you are in nerd culture ministry, we want to invite you to NCMS because we want to connect you with churches that might not have the people to do a digital ministry, but they have the resources, they have the funds, and we can point them in your direction. And then we want to empower these nerd culture, or we want to empower these ministry leaders, church leaders, in order to do these nerd culture ministries, whether it's a like comic book reading or like a LAN party or a board game night, like you name it. We want to empower these ministry leaders to go back and do these different outreaches, and we want to support them after NCMS.
Yeah, I think with we did those interviews, the 5-year interviews, fifth birthday rather, and the one thing that kind of all 6 of us currently on staff said the same was our focus for LTN has started to shift from just ministering to the nerd culture to now trying to equip the church culture at the same time. And so bringing these together, I think I feel like we're almost leading the charge of trying to repair all the things that happened in the 80s and 90s, you know, with all the satanic panic around Dungeons and Dragons and, you know, all. I feel like even though nerd culture, I don't think sees itself as like an enemy of the church these days. I think the church thinks of nerd culture as just not even a part of their world anymore. Yeah, like we already a hobby, we already dealt little side thing. We already dealt with them, and when the next Harry Potter comes up, we'll complain about it. But beyond that, you know, and I do think churches are starting to wake up to the fact that this is most of us nowadays. Yeah. Like this, even in your own church right now, most of the people in your church are nerding out about something. And they're one of my favorite things about it.
Is when people see my hoodie that says "Jesus loves you, nerd," and they're just like, "Oh, I like that hoodie, but I'm not a nerd." And I was just like, "You want to bet?" Like, give me 5 questions, and I'll find something that you nerd out about, because we're all nerds. And so I think there's something that everyone can relate to. And another thing Bubba says, I talk about him a lot, but he encourages like pastors, like, hey, use a Star Wars reference in your next message and see how many people that you've never talked to like come up to you and say something about Star Wars. It's like it exists, and we hope to kind of like pave the way for you guys, for people, leaders, to connect with people in their community.
Yeah, so it's something like how some people see it as if you're giving your devotion to, you know, things that you love, like comic books and video games, also the very childish stuff, you know, and things that, you know, they don't seem on the surface to have any connection to faith, and you know, how can you grow and, you know, give part of your soul to something like that all the time? And I'm like, okay, how about you ask from the pulpit, how many people in your church are going to go home and watch football for the next 5 hours? Yeah, like we're all nerding out about something. It doesn't have to be 100% spiritual all the time, but it does open up so many doors to connect with people. Which is exactly what LTN has been, you know, doing its whole time, is trying to connect with people that have once been hurt by the church, to give them that opportunity to see, hey, it's not all like that. You know, there's opportunity. So I'm
it can be used as a tool. Yeah, you don't have to cast it aside. You know, I grew up very much so. It's just like, oh, is something distracting you? Like, then you throw it into the fire. It's like you just cut it off, never do that again. And I was about to do that with video games until somebody challenged me to redeem the time and use that to build relationships instead of cutting myself off from relationships. And so that's what we want to do. We want to show you how to use these tools to build relationships.
Wasn't it strange times when we were kids? One of the things I remember doing was like cutting up all my secular CDs, even though none of them had cuss words or anything on them, and very few of them said anything that would have been...
They had drums?
Contrary to, I'm like, why am I cutting up this instrumental music CD right now? Just because it wasn't a Christian that played it? Yeah. I can relate. We got weirded out back then. So I know, I don't think we have all of them nailed down, but who are some of the speakers that are coming to this event?
So the ones I can list right now, we've got some feelers out there still. Like we're going at it we're approaching it by we've come up with our topics, and we want to make sure we find people that fit into those topics, rather than like, hey, you're a name,
Right.
you're a public speaker. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
So we're doing this. We're being very intentional. So right now, I had a meeting today with Jacqueline Parrish, a fan favorite,
Headliner,
and
for
she's
sure.
coming back. She's coming back this year, talking about how to demystify the nerd. And so, nerds in your community are not these, weirdos in the corner, in the dark corner, like chanting things and playing D&D. No, they're vital people that you can bring into the community, and they can be leaders. And so, she's diving into that. Bubba, our very own Bubba, is going to be talking about developing digital disciples. And so if you've been around for a minute, you'll know that we have 3D, Developing Digital Disciples, a resource that we teamed up with Satellite Gaming and so a few others to just explain how to build relationships and disciples online, digitally.
And you can catch all those videos still at youtube.com/lovethynerd. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's very much, we've seen kind of a resurgence in the need for that, because people just don't think about just like the online relationships, something we say are pixels are people. Pixels are people too. And
I think 2020 really helped us kind of realize as a culture just how necessary stuff like that would be too. Do you have any other names, or those are the only two you can drop right now?
One other thing I'll mention is like we do have a panel of digital ministry leaders that this past couple of months, you've probably seen us share the Megazord Summit documentary.
Gosh,
and that's very much so. That's a part of us as well. Like we love being a part of that. We loved meeting like these digital ministry leaders, and we want to bring some of those people back and kind of put a face to the vague name of digital ministry. And we want to put a panel of speakers in front of you and just kind of answer some like hot topic questions. But also that's going to be one of our breakouts as well. So we'll have that panel discussion as one of the keynotes, and then in the following breakout, you can, if you have a question for them, you can hop into that breakout and ask away, because it's crazy to think about digital missions and digital ministry, but we just want to answer those questions for you.
That's fantastic. All right, so let's get to the dirty details here.
Yes.
When and where is NCMS going to be happening this year?
NCMS will be happening in Marble Falls, Texas, at Bubba's home church, First Baptist Church of Marble Falls, I believe. And it's happening this November 8th through 10th. So it's right smack dab in the middle of the week. That way, we look at our target audience, and it's very much pastors and ministry leads. And so we want to make sure we're not interfering with Sunday. And so we want to give you ample time to be able to get back to your community and start sharing what we kind of discussed and went over. And so right smack dab in the middle of the week, November 8th to the 10th.
All right. So this will be airing on, let me just double check my timeline here. This will be airing on the 31st. So I don't know, will registration be open by then? Like,
yes.
Can people buy tickets?
Yes. Registration is now open. You can go to ncmsummit.com/register, and that'll take you right to our registration page. It'll have a lot of details for you. It'll have all the information, the schedule, some frequently asked questions. And if there's something that you're still curious about, there's a way to contact me on there as well to just ask that question, and I can hopefully answer it for the multitudes.
Beautiful. Give that website address one more time.
It's ncmsummit.com/register. And if you just go to ncmsummit.com, there will be a big red register here button.
Okay. And then we're also on the socials, right? at
Yes.
the same
NCM Summit.
Okay.
At NCM Summit. Find us on TikTok. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
You're on TikTok
all the
too,
major
huh?
ones.
Okay. All right.
We've got an awesome team working behind the scenes there too. So
sweet. Is there anything else that the people need to know?
That is an excellent question. We're doing all sorts of stuff. We're working behind the scenes. We need volunteers still. We're building our team out there. We need people to talk about this event, share the event. So follow us on the socials there and share the updates that you see coming out. If you're there, if you want to be there, go register. That's what we need. But for the most part, we could just use your prayers. If you can't make it, that's completely fine. We're moving this around. So hopefully we'll come to a city near you in the near future. But we could really use your prayers. We want to keep the main thing, and there's a lot of moving parts. So pray that this is successful in the ways that we need it to be. Pray that God uses it to grow us as individuals, but also just relay this information that we find so important to ministry leaders. That way we can multiply and see this, nerd culture ministry grow. So keep us in your prayers. Any questions you have, please feel free to reach out to me. All of my information is on all the websites, NCMS, LTN, you name it.
All right, Luke. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing about the event. I'm excited. I know it's still a ways away, but it's going to be here before we know it. And I am super stoked. Also that I can just drive to it in a couple hours. That's also pretty cool from where I'm at.
Yeah.
Driving all the way
I'm super thankful for the opportunity.
To Louisville was a bear.
Oh, for sure. And like I said, we're nerds and we understand FOMO and we don't want anyone to have the fear of missing out. And so this year it is very much in Texas. So we're reaching out to churches, ministries, organizations in Texas. If you're in California and want to fly out and be a part of this, please do. But next year, it's not going to be in Texas.
Right.
It could be on the East Coast. It could be on the West Coast. It could be in the Midwest. It could be, I'm not going to say Canada because we're not going international yet.
Not yet. Who knows?
But yeah, we're very much going to move it around because we want to repeat this. We want to include everyone and we want this to multiply. So.
All right. Well, thank you, brother. You have a fantastic day and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.